What do you do? How we doing? Thanks for clicking on this video. My name's Adam, and today we're talking about the Houston Rockets and why I have them as the 14th seed in the Western Conference. If you're new to the channel and this is your first video, we're doing all 30 NBA team season preview videos for every single team in the NBA. And what we're doing here is talking about these four things. These four things: off-season moves, salary cap, rotations, and their projected win total according to Vegas. So today I'm going in, the whole time here I am going to go in reverse order, so of where I project the standings to be. So yesterday I did two videos on the Magic and the Thunder in the East and the West, and today we're going to be talking about the Rockets, and in the next video we'll talk about that Eastern Conference team that I have as the second worst team in the East. Before I get started here on the Rockets, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment on the video, tell me what your thoughts are on the Rockets and how their offseason was, along with kind of where you think they're going to end up in the standings this upcoming season. So let's get started here. Let's talk about the transactions and moves that they made during the offseason here for Houston. Really the biggest thing was just the draft. Obviously landing Jalen Green is something that's really big, and I think he's going to be the guy who wins Rookie of the Year this year. I think he's got the role on a team where he is kind of going to be the face of the franchise moving forward. And I think he's going to have a lot of shot opportunities, a lot of usage in his rookie season. There will be ups and there will be downs, but I think Green's probably the guy that you are most excited for if you're a Houston Rockets fan right now. The Rockets also drafted Alperen Sengun, Usman Garuba, and Josh Christopher. Those three dudes, two of them, Sengun and Christopher, played very, very well in the summer league in Vegas in the summer, and it was really interesting to see Christopher be able to play kind of like a little bit of a point role, being the kind of a floor general at times for the team when Green was no longer playing with the summer league team. Sengun provided really good minutes. I think he's going to be a guy who you kind of wait on. I don't know exactly where he fits in on the rotation for the team, but I think you wait a little bit and he could blossom into something that's actually really serviceable, very good for the Rockets. And then Usman Garuba actually didn't play. I believe he did not play in the summer league, but he did play in the Olympics this last summer, and he's really raw on the offensive side. He's athletic, can play defense, but again, kind of a project there, which I don't mind taking a flyer in the first round on a project like him, especially when you're getting three other guys who I believe have pretty good ceilings. And even Usman Garuba himself, has a relatively good ceiling if he can kind of develop his offensive game. Let's talk about what they lost in free agency before we kind of talk about what they added. They did lose Kelly Olynyk, who signed with the Detroit Pistons, and they did lose Sterling Brown, who went to the Dallas Mavericks. Nothing earth-shattering here. It doesn't mention anything about how, I guess I should say it this way. No players that they lost are really going to hurt them a whole lot this season. And then they added Daniel Tice, and we'll get into the rotations here in a minute. I'm a little confused by the Tice selection for him and for the team. I don't know if it's the greatest match, but it is what it is, and that's what the Rockets decided to do. Look, anytime that you're able to get a really good player in the draft, a guy who's probably going to turn your franchise around or at least get it going into the right direction, I think you're a big winner in the offseason. They lucked out that their lottery pick did not fall. I believe it was if it was 4 or 5 or something like that, maybe 5 or lower, that the Rockets wouldn't have even had their pick, and it would have gone to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And so they keep their pick. They made the right selection. They didn't try to outthink the room and say, oh, let's try to go get like Scotty Barnes or Jalen Suggs. No, they picked the best player on the board, maybe the best player in the draft. I think we'll look in a few years and say that, yeah, it was probably the best player in the draft. And, when you do that as a team, you get an A for me. Now, the Tice signing isn't great, but I will give it an A in my personal opinion. Again, you couldn't do much with this Rockets team, and that actually helps us transition. Oh, no. That actually helps us transition to salary cap time. Let's look over the salary cap here for the Rockets heading into the season and see kind of what we can do here. Now, the biggest thing that is on the Rockets plate here as far as what they're going to do roster-wise is the John Wall and Eric Gordon contracts. These are contracts that are very, very huge. If you're watching on screen here, you see that Wall is making $44 million. It is an expiring deal. However, he does have that player option for next season. So does he exercise that? Probably, because he's going to get more money and nobody's going to pay him anywhere close to $47 million. Is there a way where the Rockets and him can create a buyout situation? There have been reports that talk about how they want to move on from Wall, and a trade could maybe open something and maybe make it where Wall is traded to a different team. But then also there's the Eric Gordon contract as well. Gordon's making 18, 19, and then 20 million over the next 3 seasons. The last one is not guaranteed, but still, it's a guy who's making a tad under $20 million, and he's a little bit older, and I don't think he's that player that he was when the Rockets were, dominating the West with Harden and Chris Paul. He's a good player. I am interested to see what they do with both Wall and Gordon, because the initial team that comes up to mind for me, as far as having a lot of cap space to be able to absorb the contract of John Wall and or Eric Gordon, is the Thunder. Now, the Thunder have so much cap space, they could absorb Wall, but does Houston want to give up future draft picks in order to take on a bad contract? I don't know. And I really think that, I don't think that a team's going to say, hey, we're going to take on John Wall for you, but we're also not going to give up, we're not going to give you draft picks, right? Like, Houston is going to have to attach draft picks to John Wall or Eric Gordon, unless a team gets very, very injured during the season. So again, just a random name pops into my head. Maybe the Knicks have an injury with Evan Fournier and he's done for the season. Again, knock on wood, hope, or not knock on wood, but hope for the best, hope for no injuries and have a clean season. But if it happens, does Gordon enter the conversation as a guy that maybe the Knicks would want to trade for? Maybe. We'll kind of have to see. So, but those are 2 guys, if you're a Rockets fan, keep an eye on. Don't buy any John Wall or Eric Gordon merch, because they're likely not going to last the season in Houston. At least, again, if I'm looking at it if I was the GM of the team, those are the 2 contracts I'm trying to move off of without giving up draft capital. Christian Wood on a good deal, played very, very well last year. Again, probably a really good player on a good player on a really bad team. And a good player on a really bad team looks really great. Look at Jeremy Grant last year. Look at even Colin Sexton. Like, there's some good players, but they're not great players. They just look really good or really great because they're on bad teams and their usage is so high. Jalen Green, Daniel Tice, we mentioned. Augustine, David Nwaba re-signed with Houston this last season or offseason. House, Sengun, Garuba, Christopher, Kevin Porter. We'll talk about him in a minute. And then they have some of their young guys that they had last year, like Kyrie Thomas, Jayshawn Tate, Kenyon Martin. They also added recently, they're going to bring back Dante Exum. I don't know why, to be honest with you. And then we also heard just recently that Avery Bradley is going to go and be a part of the Golden State Warriors, and hopefully fight for a roster spot there in Oakland. Let's focus really quickly on Kevin Porter here for about 30 seconds. Kevin Porter is a guy who I think is a breakout this year. If you're wanting to buy stock into whatever whatever you want to say, I guess, Kevin Porter's the guy to buy stock into. He's a dude that is top shot. Yeah, that's it. NBA top shot, the whole thing that the NBA is doing. Kevin Porter's a dude I think that is really good. And I think, again, we've given examples. A good player on a bad team can look better than what they actually probably are. And I think he's a candidate for that. So I think you're going to see a lot of Kevin Porter and Jalen Green highlights this season. But again, they're not going to be a great team. And let's actually move on to the rotations here, because we're taking a little too much time. Okay, Houston. This is brought to us by Hoops Hype. Hoops Hype has these depth charts that they kind of built and kind of projecting of what they feel like could happen during the regular season. They have Kevin Porter at the 1, Jalen Green, Eric Gordon, Daniel House, and Christian Wood. And that's the Rockets starting 5. I think that's probably what it's going to shape up to be. And then you look at their bench and the reserves: Augustine, Jayshawn Tate, KJ Martin, Daniel Tice, Alperen Sengun. So again, not a whole lot of crazy names on this list. I don't think they're like super deep. They have a lot of young players. If you want to say that they're deep in that way, yeah, they are. I mean, they're really good in the sense that, okay, well, this young guy who's like less than 22 years old or younger than 22 can come in and get minutes from a guy who is also super young as well. So they're so young, so raw, and again, there'll be some nights. I think there'll be a night in the future here in the NBA where we'll see the Rockets compete really good with like the Phoenix Suns or the Utah Jazz and throw up a lot of points, but ultimately lose the game. You need experience to win. You definitely need some older veterans to win as well. There's not really a veteran presence on this team other than Eric Gordon, and he wants out. Same with John Wall, he wants out. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how they operate as such a young team, because most of their team was just playing in the summer league just a few months ago. Let's talk about the Rockets and their projected win total according to Vegas. So Vegas actually has them at 26.5 wins. I'm going to take, man, this is really crazy because I think Oklahoma City was 22. I'll take the over on this, but I'm just taking by like 27 or 28. And even that's like really high for a team. I do think that there's going to be nights where maybe like a Lakers or a Jazz or a Mavericks maybe rest some people during the regular season and Houston gets the better of them in those type of games. There may be a game where just there's an injury and somebody's out and they're not at full strength, and Houston, again, benefits from that. So I think we'll see some fun highlights from the Rockets this year. It's not ultimately going to turn up into a team that's going to make the playoffs, but Rockets fans knew this going into the season. The whole James Harden, now John Wall, and then the Westbrook trade and all these different things have made it so hard for them to be able to attract any free agents, for one. And then for two, also be able to really create a good team. Last year was a little bit of a mess with the whole Harden situation going into the season. And I think there'll be a better situation. It's also Coach Silas's second year with the team. So maybe there's a bump there with just his coaching style and some players that played under him. So we'll see. I will take the over because of that, but not by much. And that is the last that I have to say about the Rockets here. So if you agree with me, you kind of think that the Rockets are going to be a fun team to watch, but not really showing it in the win column, feel free to comment on the video. Again, subscribe to the channel. I'm doing one more video like this in just a moment about the second to last team in the East. Talk a little bit about them. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next video. Subscribe to the channel.